Righto, boys. Time for the crystal balls. Not the Pope's, the crystal balls. Bozza, I'm going to go to you first. Let's go to 2020. And why, at that stage, is football, as we know it, whether it's the A-League, the English Premier League, or the Socceroos, or all of the above, why does football become the dominant code in New South Wales and Australia in 10 years' time?
In 10 years' time, I still think that will be too soon for us. But I think we're a long way down the road, much further than a lot of people realise, but still a long, long way away from being the dominant code. I think we'll be far further down the track for one reason and one reason only. If you have a look at the figures, and that's always been pretty much the same, of the amount of kids, Kevin or Mr. Sheedy, I like to call him Mr. Sheedy, sounds more official. He made a point about women, and I think the second point about the women after that is the children. And I've got to say, being part of when the Premier League first kicked off, one of the things that they always had fanatical support in England for the football, for soccer, football, whatever you want to call it. But one thing that made it sexier in terms of the general population was they got women involved. They made it sexy. People like David Beckham and all that, they really promoted these type of players. And I think the second thing to that is the children. If your children and your wife want to go to an event, you're going, basically. Yep. Let's be honest, right? You're going to go. Or you're going to have, you know what I'm saying, guys, right? You're going to have problems, right?
You can stay home.
Yeah, basically. So I think taking off the back of that, the fact that there's more kids that play soccer in New South Wales, especially that I know in New South Wales, I don't know about the other states, but I know in New South Wales, there's more kids that play soccer. All we need to do is to transfer that. We've got
They've always had big numbers, though.
Yes,
football
we've
has
got
always
pathways,
had big.
and there's still adjustments to be made. And I think one of the biggest adjustments, and this is a little bit of a pet case for me, is that we need to start to have promotion and relegation. We'd be the only sport in Australia that had it. It would give everybody an opportunity, if they got their stuff right, to go into the major league, and also a cup competition. Those are the things that are sadly missing, because at the minute, if you're playing for Sydney Rangers out in Penrith, there's no way that you can really test yourself against the best. Now, we've always produced really good players, and one of the differences between the players that went overseas, especially when they were very young, is the competition that you had. When you play against people who are better than you, you will get better. Yeah. And that's very, very important. And I think there's now a momentum to do that and to get our own code right, and not to worry about the other codes. Let the other codes go and do what they want to do, learn off them, but just worry about our own code and our own little niche. That's the most important thing. I think if we do that, we'll be further and further down the line. But I like to see the day, like I said, when all the four sports are doing well, because at the end of the day, you know, you want your sports to do well as a country, because it gives a choice for the kids to do something other than maybe ending up on a street corner and get into trouble that way, which I know about as well, and that's what you don't want.
Melon, you don't want the other three codes to do well, you just want to crush them, don't you?
No, not really, mate. My child's playing soccer at the moment. But I think when he comes to the age of making his own decision, he'll probably change, I'd say.
That's the greatest oxymoron I've ever heard.
Well, not really. I'm just thinking, when he gets old enough to decide himself and his father's not sending him out with his mates, he'll probably want to bash a couple of blokes and get a bit more physical.
He's tried to tackle coffee tables, so he likes that body contact.
Yeah, that's the younger one. So
okay.
The middle one's playing soccer. But rugby is travelling fairly well. I saw an article in the paper the other day by Rebecca Wilson just saying, you know, there's now a push from a South African conglomerate. Struggling on that one. South African group. Yeah, that's the one.
Wealthy dudes in South Africa.
Yeah, exactly. That are trying to get the same sort of thing as a 2020 happening.
I saw that.
In rugby. Yeah. So, I mean, the last time that rugby took a massive step was in 1995. It was amateurish, and a group called Rugby World Corporation were trying to do the same thing, privatise rugby and go into it. And that's when the IRB had to get into business and rugby became professional. So, I think if something like that happens again, and it'll just wake them up a little bit. So in 5 or 10 years, hopefully you'd have that sort of rugby game with reduced time and reduced numbers.
Haven't we got that? Sevens? Is that not the same?
Yeah, you do, but it's not the same. It's it's a little bit more like touch footy or rugby league. So.
Sheeds.
Hi, yeah.
Look, 2010, you've probably won, 3 or 4 flags with GWS, given all the concessions you're getting from the AFL by that stage?
My age, you're allowed to have concessions.
What was that?
You're allowed to have those concessions at my age.
Right, okay.
Senior citizen.
Yes.
Look, I would think that by 2020, the AFL will have AFL 11s at Homebush. in the pre-season comp, which you wouldn't even think about that yet. I hope by 2020 that we can bring to Sydney or Melbourne at some stage. Friday night, Australia versus Italy in soccer. Saturday night, Bledisloe Cup. Sunday night or afternoon, Great Britain play Australia in Rugby League. Middle of the week, AFL 1 versus AFL 2 for all Australian selection. And then we come in just late in that week, maybe say Saturday, and bring out Notre Dame versus Stanford. You get 5 codes in 1 week in Australia, you'll have 500,000 people, and every code gets a tick. That's where we've got to go in the next 10 years.
Yeah. Here.
But then I'm thinking...
Figure of the year. Yeah. Boss.
Yeah, just on the back of that, and that's fantastic what you just said. It's music to my ears, because that was another thing that came out of South Africa. When we were in South Africa, the Springboks played 2 tests against Italy, and talking to a lot of supporters that from around the world, once you're in a country and you're coming as a tourist, there's only so many things you can do. There's only so many Robben Island trips you can take, apartheid museums, even if it's here, Sydney Harbour, whatever. There are actually quite a few supporters from countries that you wouldn't believe, like Spain, Switzerland, Germany, who went to watch the Springboks against Italy because they thought that was part of South African culture. So that's in terms of our World Cup bid, and I hope this gets through to the powers that be, especially in view of the fact that the FIFA delegation is arriving, I think, on Monday, that I believe that we should play. AFL, Rugby Union and Rugby League are part of the Australian sporting landscape, always have been, always will be. And I believe, as long as it's okay with the grounds, that if we do have a World Cup here, that they should be able to play to showcase that to the rest of the world.
You've only got to change the goalpost holes. That's all you've got to change.
That's true.
Get the ground big enough, and you can have all of those codes and just take the poles out and move another third in. That's all you've got to do. Cost effective, unbelievable. Should have been done, but we're going 2020, so we're still waiting. And that's slow. But then it took 2,000 years to put wheels on suitcases, so, right. Some things are slow.